Welcome back to a Valley Sports Plug Roundtable live stream. I am Chris Patrick, and with me, as always, is my man Michael Benjamin. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you tonight, man?
Doing good. Glad to be streaming again. I know we got to do Past the Outlet. I think was that last week or the week before. But yeah, with the NBA playoffs coming to an end, the Suns recaps over. I think we're gonna start doing this again once a week. So glad to be streaming. It's been, I think, over a month. Maybe it was April the last roundtable we did. So excited to be back. But yeah, I want to thank anyone tuning in, watching live or watching back on the replay, maybe listening to the audio only version of this live stream. We do put those up on Spotify and all streaming platforms. Of course, you're watching us here on YouTube, so you know where to find us. But you can also check out our other social medias, as you see down there below, at AZ_VSP, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And then on Facebook, of course, just search Valley Sports Plug AZ, and you will find us there. So you can keep in touch and in tune with all the Valley Sports Plug action. But Mike, we got some sports to talk about. We got the Diamondbacks tied for first place now. Actually, they were a half game back, but with the Dodgers having the day off, they made their way to tying for first place. Of course, the Suns are still on the hunt for their next head coach. They've narrowed it down to a short list of, I think, 2 or 3 candidates. And then, whatever else comes up as we go through the night. I know the Denver Nuggets just beat the Miami Heat in game 1. It wouldn't be a Valley Sports Plug roundtable without our man, Ian, joining us this evening. And Ian likes baseball. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How's everybody?
Doing good, man. Doing good. It's Thursday night. I think I mentioned Thursday, June 1st. I think I mentioned that. So ready for the weekend. I think we're all going to head out with VSP Tallman down to Chase Field, check out a Dbacks game. They're taking on the Braves. Mike's trying to get a free hat, first 15,000, get a really nifty snapback. I'd love to get my hands on that. I was seeing that for reference, last Saturday when Boston was in town, the attendance was just under 30,000. So I think that gives us a 50-50 shot, especially if we show up early. I like our chances. So after the stream, we'll do some game plan and we'll figure it out. But fellas, what do you say we dive into our first topic tonight? The Suns in the hunt for their new head coach and that short list of candidates. I think it was Kevin Young, Doc Rivers, and Frank Vogel. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong there.
That's right. That's where we're down to now.
All right. Well, Mike, of course, I want to know what your opinion is. We did discuss this a little bit on Past the Outlet, but we got some more news now. But Ian, I want your outsider perspective as our resident Brooklyn Nets and East Coast fan. Who do you think the Suns should go with as their next head coach?
Out of the options you just named that are still on the table, I think Kevin Young is probably the best way to go because he's been there a while. The players like him a lot, and it's one of those things where I look at the Suns and I hear they want to promote a assistant coach or associate coach, I think is his actual title. But I kind of think that's a little bit of a red flag. Like, oh, I thought you guys wanted to win, but we just promoted Jacques Vaughn, and it is working for us. Like, the trepidation of the Nets is not his fault. He is a good coach, so it can work to promote him, and he definitely has experience. I took a look at his just like where he's been in his career, and he's been all over the place as an assistant. It could be time for him to show up as a head coach. Frank Vogel is interesting. I never actually heard that name be thrown around. I did hear Ty Lue, but I don't know if he's off the table or if it's just expected that he's going to re-sign with the Clippers. But I think Kevin Young is probably the most realistic option. And I do think that, it's not – Doc Rivers is just a terrible choice. That would not work at all. So I think I like Kevin Young. It's a safe bet.
I think at this point, I agree with your assessment 100%. I was a little bit hesitant of wanting Kevin Young for kind of some of those reasons you listed, being an assistant coach. If we're trying to win now, my first gut reaction was you want a head coach that's proven, has experience, shows that he can win. But on the other hand, every coach has to get his start somewhere. So why not be with a good, high quality team? I mean, if you start a coach off in his career giving him a trash team, you could say there's nowhere else to go but up. But are you really setting him up for success? So give him a good team, sink or swim. Mike, are you worried about the short window the Suns have with their aging superstars aside from Devin Booker?
A little bit, but you still have to think about this entire free agency process hasn't really gone down yet. So this team is going to look very different from where it stands right now. I mean, I still think we're going to have some big key pieces, whether it be DeAndre Ayton or Chris Paul, move this offseason. You might get some, older guys on vet minimums and just key pieces that need to build around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But I think going down to this this 3-man race at this point, I mean, when was the last time Frank Vogel coached? Was it in the bubble when he did win a title with the Los Angeles Lakers?
Mm-hmm.
But Doc Rivers' track record ever since that win with the Boston Celtics has just been disappointing, to say the least. I mean, he's had some of the best teams in the NBA, and it seems like he can never scratch out of the semifinals. So you just know what you're going to get with Doc Rivers. And I know Ian was talking about Tyronn Lue. I think that was the hot and heavy guy that a lot of people were really excited about exploring with the Suns. But, the Clippers front office basically came out and doubled down saying they want him to be a long-term part of this franchise. And he did great with, a tough situation with both of his superstars down for multiple years, it seems like. Going back to the 2021 when they went to the Western Conference Finals against the Phoenix Suns, they didn't have Kawhi, and he just is a good piece to build anything around. So it was going to be an uphill battle to find any kind of way to get him over here. And as we know, we don't have the draft capital anymore because of the Kevin Durant trade. But I know, Chris, going back a little bit ago when we first were hearing all the different names, Jordy Fernandez, Nick Nurse, all these guys who are starting to come off the table, you were a little bit worrisome about bringing in a first-time head coach. And I am right there with you because there's still a lot of unknowns. But, Kevin Young, he has experience in the G League. He spent about 6 years, not only as an assistant, but as a head coach. So he's worked with grooming guys for the NBA. He spent a number of years with the Philadelphia 76ers as an assistant. And, the past couple of seasons has been that associate head coach, as Ian was talking about, under Monty Williams. And that was another thing that might have been a red flag. But we're already hearing that Devin Booker has signed off on Kevin Young. The guys in the building really like him. And I think that it was just only a matter of time before this decision was to be made. So I would really be surprised if tomorrow on Friday or early next week, we don't hear that it's Kevin Young being named the Phoenix Suns' next head coach.
I'm really glad you brought up those points because that's kind of what I was going to piggyback off of is just the fact that he already has the trust of the Suns players. He's familiar with the organization, and having that Devin Booker sign off, if you will, is huge because he's really going to be the future and face of this franchise without a doubt. And so, yeah, he would be a first-time true head coach, but already having the rapport with the team, he'll be able to hit the ground running and I think a smoother transition into the job. Whereas if you bring in a Frank Vogel or a Doc Rivers, he has to get to know these guys a little more and integrate his whole new game plan where I wouldn't be surprised if the game plan might look similar to Monty Williams. I mean, I know this isn't football, so it's not like you have a whole ass playbook like that you have to memorize. I'm sure there is a playbook of some variety, but at this professional level, guys have been playing basketball for so long that they are quick to adapt and can learn these plays pretty quick. But I am, all in all, I'm okay with it, and I'm with you. I wouldn't be surprised to see that name come down the pipe as Kevin Young getting the hire. But then I am really curious to see what happens in the offseason. Like you said, those moving parts where are we going to have Chris Paul? Are we going to have DeAndre Ayton? Ian, again, to kick it over to you for your outside perspective, what do you think the appetite is out there for a really old superstar like Chris Paul for trade bait?
I
ask you the tough questions.
Damn, that is a good question. That's a hard one because I honestly don't know. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a GM and ask myself why, like, what would Chris Paul at this age with the injuries that he has get me in terms of being a player on the floor. And I really think, a conversation would have to be had if I was trading for him that, if we're making any kind of relevant push, you are going to have to take a smaller role. Otherwise, it's going to be something where it's a salary dump of sorts, where you're trading for him and then waiving him or something like that. That's the only way I can see anything working out. And if that's the case, then the return that the Suns are going to get back is not what you're looking for. It's kind of a rock in the hard place situation. I think that might be something where maybe the GM of the Suns may have to sit down with Chris Paul and just kind of persuade him to retire. I think that might be a better way to go, because what you might get back for Chris Paul, that's tough, because it's so hard to say how much time he has left. It could be a year, 2 years max. His injuries are looking rough. His age is getting up there. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and it's like the balance of what you're going to end up paying him versus what you get in return. I mean, I think he's under contract for this upcoming season, and then the season after that at about $30 million each season. So that's a good chunk of change. Like, I'm right there with you. If you're a team that's contending, I don't know if you really want Chris Paul on your roster with just the uncertainty, not even so much his play and what he's able to give you production wise, but just the unreliability of what the last 2-3 years in the playoffs he's gone out and been out at crucial times. A situation I could see, and I want to bounce this off you, Mike, see if you agree, is if you're a younger team that's still growing and building culture, you have no expectation of making a deep playoff push. Do you bring in a guy like Chris Paul for a couple years to help turn the culture and coach these guys up? And then on the flip side of that, how receptive do you think Chris Paul would be to that this stage in his career? Would he surrender the fact that he's not ever going to win a championship and be willing to do that and take on that role?
Honestly, Chris, that's a great question. I mean, that's just the age-old face of the moment that people will find not only on the basketball court or for professional athletes, just in general in life, where it's like you see that one glimmer of hope where you might be able to reach the mountaintop, but is it truly something that can come to fruition? And what's your best bet moving forward to finish your career strong? And I think at this point, we just know what Chris Paul is. The past 3 seasons that he has been on the Phoenix Suns, he has not been able to stay healthy through the playoffs. And at this point, if you're looking at what this Suns team has to do, it's all about the playoffs, right? I don't care if he can play 75, 80 games in the regular season. Is he going to be able to withstand heavy minutes? We saw it this past season with 40-plus minutes, and he couldn't make it through the second round. You can't go into next year thinking that he's going to be your starting point guard for a playoff push. I would be okay if the Suns go into next season with him to start, but they also have to have a plan of action if they aren't able to make a move for some kind of guy who can fill that role down the road. And the truth of the matter within the NBA as well is you don't really want to go into a season thinking that way and trying to make adjustments partially through a season or halfway through. You need to start building your roster to what it's going to be for a playoff push as soon as possible. Because you look at teams like the Denver Nuggets, you look at teams like the Miami Heat. These core guys have been together for years now, and it takes that time. You saw what the Phoenix Suns did with bringing in Kevin Durant. Obviously, he was injured, but it just was not enough time to get this team properly situated to be a true title contender with the pieces that they had. So, one of the things we've been hearing in regard with Chris Paul is possibly a move with the San Antonio Spurs, which I think would be a perfect fit for him. He can mold and start helping Wembanyama grow into the NBA game. He can start to figure out, I know Devontae Graham was another guy that has just bounced around a lot, but I like his game. I don't know if he's a full-time starter down the road, but if you have somebody in your corner like Chris Paul that can teach you the ins and outs, you just never know. So unfortunately, like, I know we've had this conversation, Chris. We are always going to be thankful for what Chris Paul did for this organization to help us get out of our dark days into a place that we haven't seen for 30 years, which was actually playing in the NBA Finals. But we just know that he is unfortunately too limited, and it's time to start making those adjustments, not just for the betterment of the Phoenix Suns, but for the best opportunity for Chris Paul to flourish for the end of his career as well.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Always going to appreciate what he did. You can definitely credit him and give Monty credit for turning the culture, bringing us out of the dark days of, I think, 10 straight losing seasons or seasons without the playoffs, whichever it was, and back into a team that's competitive, made a finals appearance, and just unfortunately had a couple rough exits in a row. But this kind of leads into this story that I was seeing today. And kind of piggybacking off this Chris Paul topic, you mentioned the Spurs being an option for a team that he could go to, coach up some of these young upcoming guys. But interestingly enough, did you see Monty Williams is going to coach the Pistons on a record 6-year, $78.5 million deal? I think that'll make him the highest paid head coach in the NBA.
That didn't take long, man. I think it was 18 days from the time he was fired to becoming the highest paid head coach in the NBA. That's great. That's crazy, man. Good for Monty. I'm very proud and excited for him. So,
yeah, I'm glad to see he's continuing coaching. I know a lot of people are saying he might take a year off, just let the Suns pay him. But you could tell he loves the game. He wants to be around it. He loves coaching guys up. But in that same vein, now that Monty Williams is on the Pistons, they finished with the worst record in the Eastern Conference, I think maybe even the NBA last year. So they're in definitely need of a franchise revitalization and changing of culture, it seems. They do have the 5th pick in this upcoming draft. Depending on who you ask, maybe not the deepest draft outside of Wembanyama and maybe Scoot Henderson. But there's some guys in there that I think could be productive on a team as they kind of grow in the league. What would you think about that, Ian? Between the Spurs and the Pistons, if you're Chris Paul, which one of those opportunities would be more enticing?
If I'm Chris Paul and I had a say in the matter, I actually do like the idea of the Pistons, because working with Wembanyama, that's tempting. But on the other side of it, you're staying with Monty Williams and you're helping with player development and growing, as you and Mike just stated. You're almost like I don't know if there's a term for it, but basically like an assistant coach that's on the floor. Because, he had a good relationship with Monty, and that could grow not only whoever they get with the 5th pick, but the players that they currently have with Cade Cunningham and those guys. I think that could actually lift the ceiling of their younger players for sure.
I think that one honestly makes the most sense to me. Just like for everything, all the reasons you said there, the fact he has that relationship with Monty, they're the two that turned around this organization, and he has that trust. I think I'm probably going to botch the quote, but I think when they asked Chris Paul about the Monty firing, he said something to the extent of like he didn't understand it, but he's not the GM, or like that's not his decision to make. It was a very like non-answer, but you could definitely tell I think the vibe of it, in my opinion, was that he wasn't too excited to see Monty Williams be fired by the Suns. And at the end of the day, I know Chris Paul's a true professional, and no matter what coach comes in, no matter what team he's under contract for, he's going to play and he's going to try and play. But not to beat a dead horse, it's just his injuries, man. We need a point guard that can play through an entire playoff run, and that guy just isn't Chris Paul. He's not able to do it. So I feel bad for the guy. I really do wish he had gotten a ring, specifically with the Suns. I don't think that the fact that he didn't is really going to tarnish his legacy too much. There's a lot of talk, and that's maybe another conversation for another day, but the whole, do you have to win a ring to be in the Hall of Fame? So I know Ben was on here, I think, a couple months ago on a live stream saying any player that ever wins a championship should be in the Hall of Fame. And I think that's a bit extreme.
We're not going to go down that route.
Talking about Hall of Fame qualifications. But yeah, I'll be interested to see. Maybe by the next time we have a roundtable, we'll know who the Suns head coach is. I don't know how soon in the season trades start being made. I guess before we get off the NBA topic, I'm thinking that it's going to be Nuggets in 4. I'm serious. I think they're going to sweep the Heat. I don't think the Heat is any match for this Nuggets team. They're firing on all cylinders. They had some rest, and the Heat just played 2 really tough series back to back. Not to mention they started as a play-on team. So they've played a lot more basketball than the Nuggets, on top of just, I think, not being as talented when it comes down to their roster. Mike, what's your assessment after game 1 and what you've seen the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ray. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep. I'll say Nuggets in 5. I think the Heat will be able to sneak one out. But I can't even say if it would be in Miami. I mean, last series, they won 3 out of 4 on the road. So
True.
I just think Denver is a different animal. They outsize the Miami Heat at every position. They've had so much rest. And you really have to factor in that altitude as well. It's no joke. So by the time you're done with game 1, trying to prep for game 2, you got to be going back home. And it's just a juggling act that's kind of tough. But, you know, if the Heat want to have any semblance of a chance in this series, I'm telling you, Jimmy Butler is going to have to take over. I know that this team is very successful with playing together, but when guys aren't hitting, I think Max Strus was like 0 of 8 or 0 of 9 tonight. Duncan Robinson really didn't do too much.
Caleb Martin didn't do anything.
Caleb Martin was really off. And I know it's an adjustment period. You're coming off a different series. It's a whole different animal that you're trying to game plan for in a shorter amount of time than the Nuggets had. I think they had 10 plus days off, right? Since their sweep of the Lakers. But I just think it's that time for the Denver Nuggets. They've put in their work, they've put in their years, and these guys are so cohesive and a well-oiled machine right now. I don't think anybody would be able to stop them at this point. So
it doesn't seem like it. I don't know if it was a Twitter Spaces I was listening to or a TikTok live stream. Some guy was talking about basketball and, reading the comments. And like this guy kept saying, Lowry's going to clamp Murray. Lowry's going to clamp Murray. And that did not happen in game 1. And I don't know where this guy got that idea, if he's just some delusional Heat fan or if he isn't really attuned to what's going on in basketball. But I totally agree. Again, I think the Nuggets are just far more talented. And that I didn't even think about that, but the altitude is no joke. I mean, of course, Miami is literally at sea level and Denver is 5,200 feet or whatever. Ian, I guess kind of the same question. So I got Nugs in 4. Mike's thinking 4 or 5. Are you somewhere in that range?
Yeah, I think I agree with Mike. I think it's going to be a firm Nuggets in 5. I think they'll get 1 in there. I think the biggest factor is that Jimmy Butler in the series against the Celtics, when the Celtics took those 3 games in a row, Jimmy Butler just looked a little bit slower than normal. Like he might finally be gassed after strong arming his team as far as he did. And the Nuggets just have too much to compete with. And granted, I don't, not to discredit anyone else on the Heat, but yes, there are other key players. Like Caleb Martin had that huge game against the Celtics, but I do think it has a lot to do with the way that Jimmy Butler plays basketball and gets those guys open. So to have him be as exhausted as he is very detrimental. And to pick on the live streamer you were watching, saying that Kyle Lowry is going to clamp down Jamal Murray, even if he did, I mean, it's not going to slow down the Nuggets very much. You know what I mean? Like he could absolutely just block Murray from getting any shot at all, and you still have Jokic to worry about, and Adebayo's not going to do shit with him. So, yeah, man, it's going to be Nuggets in 5.
I was going to say 5, but I wanted to be as disrespectful as possible. So, but I honestly, I do believe it though. I do believe that it could be a sweep. I mean, it was, I think only an 11-point win for the Nuggets tonight, but they were leading from the start. Like I think it was 26-20 at the end of the first quarter and halftime and a double-digit lead. So Nuggets were probably pacing themselves a little bit. I just think the Heat are out of gas. So definitely going to be exciting. I'm going to watch the finals games. I think I know that I said that was going to be the last basketball topic, Mike, but I do have to ask you. I think it's something a lot of Suns fans are thinking about. Say the Nuggets win the championship. Does that make you feel any better about being bounced out by them and the 2 games we won?
No, you lose. You lost the series. You didn't have enough firepower to compete. You can't take solace in losing to an NBA champion. It just means you have to look yourself in the mirror and state that you have work to do. I think that's just how you have to look at it at the end of the day. The truth of the matter is, yeah, Chris, we had a decade of darkness. That's like my favorite saying now for this team. We were the worst team in the NBA for at least a 5-year stretch. I mean, we had the worst record in the NBA. But now there are expectations that come with this team and the players that are there. So when you fall short of that expectation, you just didn't get the job done. I mean, you can be happy and thankful for making the playoffs and making a push and making it to the second round. Yeah. But at this point, when you make a trade for a Kevin Durant, the only answer to the problem at hand is an NBA championship. And we didn't get it done. I'm not going to be disappointed, or I'm not going to be like, yeah, see, at least we lost to the Denver Nuggets. No, we didn't get it done. It's time to circle back and move forward and figure out how we can get it done next year.
Yeah, I agree. There's no finding solace in that. And we could play the coulda, shoulda, woulda game. But at the end of the day, the best team won, and we just got to move on. And I'm already thinking about next season for the Suns. I'm not going to get caught up in the past. Gonna be curious to see, though. I'm really excited for this offseason. As I kind of am often, to see what moves are made. Last offseason was pretty disappointing for me, and I don't know if that was because of the ongoing Robert Sarver drama and what was happening there, or what kind of control he had on the team, or restrictions he put on James Jones. I know a lot of people were calling for James Jones' head, even suggesting that we should drop him and get the guy who just left Golden State. Was that Bob Myers or something like that? Yeah, so I don't know. I think there's still some pieces that are going to move. We'll see what happens and be sure to keep you updated. But fellas, what do you say we talk about some baseball?
Oh, yeah, baby. Baseball. Let's do it. Ian likes baseball.
Hell yeah. Ian likes baseball. Ian is a Yankees fan. The Yankees are 34-24, and the Diamondbacks are 34-23. So your first favorite team and your second favorite team, putting words in your mouth, are doing pretty good so far this season. The Dbacks are tied for first place in the NL West with the, of course, what is it called? I was trying to be slick with it. The
Doyers,
the Dodgers, but I was trying to be clever about it. Like, well, who are the Empire in Star Wars, right? They're the evil faction.
Empire.
So the
I
evil
thought the
Empire.
Yankees were called the Evil Empire. That's been a thing for them forever.
Well, they're the AL.
The Evil Empire.
They're the AL Evil Empire.
Okay.
We'll call the Dodgers the NL Evil Empire. But yeah, I'm really excited. We were a half game back, as the title of this live stream suggests, but the Dodgers had a day off, and the D-backs played their 4th straight against the Rockies, sweeping that series. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're 19 of 12 at home and 15 of 11 on the road. So that's huge, man. Like, being able to win on the road and at home and have consistency. I think we kind of started to lull there a little bit in the beginning of May, and I was starting to worry, like, our hot starts fizzled out, but they've picked right back up where they left off. Zach Gallen threw a few duds, but he pitched a gem the other night. So really excited for this team. I mean, Ian, I'll give you the floor to talk about whatever you want baseball related, but you just got to tell me what you're thinking about this D-backs team so far here at the beginning of June.
The D-backs, they look awesome. It's all offense too. Their pitching still has some questions, but I was trying to pull it up. I can't find it now, but I saw a graphic recently. It was what the Diamondbacks are leading in, and it's what you'd expect. It's like, it's on base percentage. They're like second in the league at stolen bases. They're second in the league at. It's such an awesome, it's honestly like my favorite brand of baseball. It reminds me of the Royals back when they made it to the World Series, where it's very little power, It's getting these hits and just running on, just being a terror on the bases. It's awesome. All they really need is pitching. If they can just get, honestly, I think they have 1, 2, and 3 figured out. Obviously, they have Gallen and Kelly. I think Brendan Pfaadt is going to be staying around for a little bit at least until he falls off again. Maybe 4 and 5. That's where it gets tricky, and then they just need bullpen help too. But it seems like a lot of teams need bullpen help. So really, that's what it is. I remember the early prediction that I had was to just make the good players better. And I think that they're excelling at that. I think that they're, like the eyes or the prize at the end of the season shouldn't be winning a pennant. It should just be just getting the best product out there that you can, getting an identity, getting a system, and then building on that. And they're knocking that out of the park. They're doing great. Once they get just 1 or 2 starting pitchers, they'll be in great shape.
I 100% agree. And I like that they're finally starting to see the fruits of their draft labor, because we kept hearing Diamondbacks have the best farm league. They have great prospects. They're this, they're that. And then we never really saw anything come from that. But I understand in baseball, these guys have to develop. They got to go through the system, especially when you're drafted out of high school or, 19, 20 years old. Baseball is a whole nother animal. But to finally see like guys like Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas, I know he's been sent down, but he's been a good productive. He did really good in the World Baseball Classic. I think Jake McCarthy was another one of those guys. And even like you mentioned, Brandon Pfaadt there. Yeah, he's kind of been a little shaky since he's come up, but he's a top 50 prospect. And so if we keep investing in him, giving him opportunities, if he can live up to the hype and we're patient enough to give him that space, I think the sky's the limit. And not to mention, we also have Drew Jones waiting in the farm system, where I don't think we'll see him this season. Might not even see him next season. But I think I was seeing he was slated for 2025. But you never know. Corbin Carroll kind of got fast-tracked. I don't think people expected to see him in the league this early. And now look where he is. You bring up a great point, too, about kind of their strategy and the identity they're developing for themselves as just aggressive base runners. We got a lot of wheels on this team. And so it makes for some exciting baseball. And I think that's another good point of how these young guys are able to adapt to the changes made and really flourish. So hopefully they can keep that momentum. We're not even halfway through the season, but a lot to be optimistic about. Mike, what is your, what are you seeing so far from the Diamondbacks from what you've been watching?
Yeah, I'm just really excited about these young weapons really coming to play this year. I mean, one of my favorite quotes that I've heard from this team so far was after that unfortunate ninth inning loss to the Phillies when we gave up that 2-run homer, and Zach Gallen had pitched another good game. Wasn't one of his best, but he basically came out and said, we have to win those kind of games. The games you're supposed to win, you just can't take your foot off the pedal. And that's the mentality that this team has taken with them this entire season, instead of just, and Ian, you're talking the right things, where it's like, we got to get these young kids better because they're so young, right? They're still raw prospects at the end of the day. But when you see an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot, you got to switch that mentality. And this team has done that as well. I mean, finally, Merrill Kelly is coming to form, He was the only one who was able to squeak out a win in that Red Sox series, which is disappointing because that was a series where you have to have that same mentality. I mean, the Red Sox are at the bottom of the AL East right now. It is skewed, I know, with Tampa Bay with 40 wins. And, Ian, you guys have the same record as us, but you guys are sitting in third place right now. But I really would have loved to have gotten 2 out of 3 in that one. And Brandon Pfaadt faltered again. I still think you still have to give him opportunities to grow. Like you said, the top 50 prospect, and we need pitching, but to sweep the Rockies, it's just a beautiful thing to see. And especially to get that win today with that 2-run finish him off by Corbin Carroll. I mean, the guy who is at least has to be in the top of the conversation for NL Rookie of the Year. It's exciting. It's exciting to get some good quality baseball here in the Valley once again. I mean, it seems like 2017 was a decade ago. It's getting close to it. So it's just finally nice to have a team that's going to get us through the summer while, Chris, I'll say for myself, I might be speaker for you as well, but when our favorite sports are in the off season, it's always good to have a good team that you can back and stay focused on them throughout the summer as well, especially when it's so damn hot here in the Valley.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I 100% agree. I was literally, as you were saying that, thinking the same thing. Like, man, it's so good when baseball is the only thing going on and it's hot as hell, 115 degrees. Just knowing that you can turn on a Diamondbacks game and actually expect them to win and not just go down to the ballpark when the Yankees are in town or when a team that's actually good out there is in town, because now we're the team that's good and it's some good games. I would have liked to seen us perform a little bit better against Boston when they're in town, but beggars can't be choosers, full disclosure. Mike, I wanted to ask you again real quick, and Ian, maybe we can let me not get ahead of myself. So Ian and I were playing Xbox last night. We were playing MLB The Show, and there's a card series in there. Basically, there's a mode called Diamond Dynasty. You basically get virtual trading cards that become your in-game characters. For those of you who don't know, I won't bore you with the details. Anyway, they have like fun little like different styles of them. There's like the live series, which is just like your regular cards. And then they have a couple other fun ones that I won't get too much into. But these ones that they came out with recently, it's like nickname cards where all the players have like their nickname on there instead of their actual name. And so it's like, what are some examples, Ian? There was like Garv Sauce for Mitch Garver.
Yeah, they have, for an older player, it would be like Randy Johnson. It'll say the big unit.
Big unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like that. Now I can't think of any that are recent.
There was that one guy, Miles Mikolas. He was like 3508 or something like that.
5280, because that's how many feet are in a mile. I think Rafael Devers is Babyface Assassin.
That sounds right.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them.
But where I was going with that is Ian brought up a great question. And so far in my limited research, I haven't found the answer to it. But do you know, Mike, does Corbin Carroll have a nickname yet?
I don't think so. I'll be honest, I don't listen to AZ Sports as much as I used to. So normally that's where a lot of that stuff will originate.
Yeah.
I know the bigger platforms that are growing within the Valley as well is PHNX Sports. I don't think I've really heard too much from them yet as well. So there could be something on the table. What you got? You got something? You got something for the people?
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you guys, and maybe we can brainstorm something here. Maybe Valley Sports Plug could be the Valley media outlet that gives Corbin Carroll a nickname or moniker that catches on. I feel like it has to be something that incorporates his ability to hit, but also his ability to run the bases.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Who was it that they were calling the fastest man in baseball? That was the guy we traded to the Yankees, right?
God damn it. I keep wanting to say Tim Lincecum, and it's totally not Tim Lincecum. What the hell is that guy's name?
I think his name might have been Tim, though.
Locastro. Tim
Locastro.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, he almost broke like the stolen bases without getting caught record. I think it was like 25 or 26.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think we got to think of something, man, because Corbin Carroll is obviously signed that big contract in the offseason. He's going to be a stud, hopefully, on this team for many years to come. But I'll have to think about that one. Maybe anybody watching this right now or watching back, leave a comment below and let us know if you have any ideas for Corbin Carroll nicknames.
What about OK Corral?
OK
Anything?
Corral? Okay, I like that. I could be on board with that. Like good play on words.
Something. We're going to figure this out. And it's in Tombstone, so.
There you go. There you go. So I want to bring up this next story while we're talking about the Diamondbacks. This was news that broke today. And this article here is on Arizona Sports 98.7's website. It's about the judge rules in favor of Dbacks getting full payment from Diamond Sports Group. And Diamond Sports Group is the company that owns and operates Valley Sports and where all the Diamondbacks games are broadcast. Do I have the article up? Here we go. So I'll just read a little bit of it. It says a bankruptcy judge on Thursday ruled in favor of Major League Baseball against Diamond Sports after the latter filed for bankruptcy in March, per Sportsco Michael McCann. That means that Diamond Sports still has to fulfill its end of contracts for the rights to broadcast MLB games. The Arizona Diamondbacks, televised on Diamond's Valley Sports Arizona, are ordered to still receive the full payment of $18 million according to Arizona's law. The Dbacks joined the Cleveland Guardians, Texas Rangers, and Minnesota Twins as teams the judge ruled are still due that full allotment of money, If Diamond cannot pay the fees, MLB wants Diamond to reject the agreements in place so the league could get broadcasting rights back. So I feel like this is good news and bad news. It means that we're still not going to have easy access to Diamondbacks games because they'll still be behind that horrible Valley Sports Plug wall of needing to have a cable subscription, or I don't even know if maybe satellite TV. But I think it might be kind of starting to show us the light at the end of the tunnel where maybe after this season, once they fully go bankrupt or whatever ends up happening there, the league will retake those rights and either be able to sell them to someone who can make it more presentable or just present the games to us here locally through the MLB for the foreseeable future. I don't know, whoever wants to take this first. Is this a sign of optimism, or are you kind of bummed about this here?
Go ahead,
Mike,
Ian.
you got anything? Okay.
Not really.
I think it's a step in the right direction, honestly, because of the part at the end there where you said that if Valley can't pay the Diamondbacks, then the TV rights are handed back over to Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred, I don't remember which team it was exactly, but with the television rights, he basically lifted blackout restrictions for that market. And I think that could be where this is headed if Valley Sports doesn't have the money to pay the Diamondbacks, which is always good because, God damn it, I live here and I want to watch the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I don't understand how we can't get our Valley teams on television. I mean, has there been a faster fall from grace than Valley Sports in regards to sports media than we've seen in a long time? I mean, is this correct? Valley Sports took over from Fox Sports Networks on March 31st, 2021. So it's been a little over 2 years, and they're already filing for bankruptcy and they can't figure their shit out. It's ridiculous, man. I wonder how this is going to go within the Phoenix Suns agreements as well, right? Because didn't Matt Ishbia come out and say, hey, we're going to put all of these on My 45 or whatever. We're going to put them on our general cable networks. And then they basically got sued. And now it's all halt right now. And we're still waiting to see what happens from that. So light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, I'm happy about that. But how long is this thing going to get stretched out? Because when you start talking legal matters, we all know that shit takes forever, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we talked about, and that's a great point you bring up there with Matt Ishbia's deal in wanting to make the games free for everyone in Arizona to access. I don't know if that was going to be through like the Suns app or I think a local TV partner. I think it was like 3 TV and Channel 5. And that's how it used to be. Ian, before you moved out here, when we were growing up, you could watch Suns games on UPN 45 with the rabbit ears. You could watch Dbacks games on Channel 3, Arizona's Family. And it was great because you didn't need a cable subscription to see your local sports teams. And for all the reasons Matt Ishbia says, I feel like it only makes sense. The more people you have able to access your product, the more likely they are to you are to see that return by them coming down to the stadium, buying merchandise, even giving gifts of merchandise, building and buying lifelong fans through a free product. I mean, it's like when you go to the grocery store and it's like something is super discounted and you're not just going to go there for that super discounted thing. You're going to buy all the other products along with it. So you're going to go to the stadium and you're going to pay $20 for a beer that's probably not worth $20. But of course, we can't have nice things. And as Mike mentioned there, this Diamond Sports Group who owns Bally's sued the Suns. And so that deal's on hold right now. And it's just like, I wonder, like, what are you guys doing? You are are going bankrupt. You're in bankruptcy court right now. I get like you want the rights so you can sell the advertisement and maybe bounce back, recover from bankruptcy. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how that all works, but I sure hope that they end up completely folding and going away. And Mike, that's incredible that I didn't know that it was just March of 2021 when they took that over. I knew it was recently, but I didn't know it was within the last 2 years. So that's truly incredible. I'd be interested to see what happens with that. I mean, Ian, just because I'm not sure, what's the streaming like back, when you were, just leaving New York and before you came out here? Do you know what it's like for those to watch those sports teams if you want to see a Nets game or you want to see a Yankees or Mets game?
So good question. There's 3 different channels I can think of that are just New York sports channels that are on any premium cable package, and it'll be on things like Sling or YouTube TV, what have you. Any streaming package that has live TV will have them. There's Yes Network, which is owned by the Yankees, so they have their own TV rights. MSG, which is owned by James Dolan's group, Madison Square Garden, so they do Rangers, Knicks, New York Liberty, and then there's SNY. I have no fucking idea who owns them because they only show Mets games. But this basically isn't an issue in New York. It's just the teams are large enough intellectual properties and entities, and I'm just using big words just to use them at this point. They're large enough corporations that they can just broadcast the games themselves, and that's what they do. I don't think they actually make too much money off of the broadcasting. And I do know that there had been times in the past where they get into legal disputes with like networking companies like Viacom or like the big cable conglomerate type companies, and then like temporarily the channels will get shut down, but that's usually only for like a couple months and then it just comes right back up. But it's not hard to get access to the games if you're in the New York market.
Indubitably.
Indubitably.
No, that's super interesting. I mean, I think that makes sense. And I think that's one of my biggest points of frustration with everything being stuck behind the Valley Sports wall is because it's not on YouTube TV. It's not on Sling. They don't exist on any of those services. So in Arizona, you pretty much have to have Cox Cable or DirecTV. I couldn't even name another cable company in the Valley. I don't know if CenturyLink does television cable or if they just do internet, but it's just really like almost monopolizing in a way where it's just not good for the fans, not good for the brand. And I hope that the Diamondbacks regret handcuffing themselves to Valley Sports. Of course, hindsight's 2020. They didn't maybe know what they were signing up for, but it's tough, man. It's tough. It's not a good look. And it's really frustrating when I don't do this, but when you have to watch games illegally that are in your own local market, you have to go get an app or find them somewhere on the internet just to watch games that are in your local market because you don't need a cable subscription. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pay hundreds of dollars a month for cable or satellite just to watch the sports teams I want to watch. It doesn't make sense for me.
Secure that VPN, Chris. Make sure you're protected, my guy.
Of the FBI kicking in not my door, but if anyone did that, they would have their door being kicked in.
Their hypothetical door, right?
Yeah, my hypothetical. Hypothetically, if I did that in Minecraft.
From what I've been told, and it's definitely not something I've ever done myself, but if you get a VPN and watch, if you go to any of your streaming services on that VPN and put your location to an out of market place like Seattle or something, you could get Diamondbacks games, but I wouldn't know anything about that.
Hypothetically speaking, that's good for the people, Ian. I like that.
And that's what really sucks is because I think it was one of the cell phone carriers, maybe T-Mobile or something like that, where it's like if you are a user or a carrier, whatever it is, you get the MLB ticket or whatever it is, where you can watch all the games. But
Yep.
funny enough, with that, your local team is always the team that's blacked out. So you can watch all the other teams. And I even think that still applies for away games. So say like the Dbacks are in Miami and you try and watch that game. They're like, we got your GPS location. We know you're in Arizona. So sorry, you can't watch that. You have to go buy a cable subscription and watch it on Valley Sports. It just really sucks. So again, we'll keep tabs on that. We'll keep you guys updated as we learn more on that. But now we're reaching that fun point in the stream where we're on to the and more section. So fellas, is there anything that you had on your mind tonight, Valley Sports related or otherwise? I mean, we can talk pop culture. We do that sometimes. Anything you're watching or keeping an eye out for?
Well, I'll jump in here and I'm going to pass it right over to Ian because I know that he wants to talk about his feelings on the Coyotes and the strucken down deal with Tempe. I know he wants to talk about it. Ian, you got to tell us, man. Did you vote in that by chance as well?
I didn't because I'm in Ahwatukee now. But
that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I would have voted no though. It's literally just such a bad the very spot. I know you guys were saying that it's just a landfill, and I totally get that. But putting an NHL arena there would congest that area so bad, much worse, I should say, than it already is. With ASU expanding as fast as it is, and just the roads there are so narrow. There's not really a freeway exit for Priest or Rio Salado right there. Like there's the 202, but you have to get off on 52nd and then go down. So it would be a pain in the ass to get to, and it would just completely gridlock that entire area when you add a hockey game mixed in with, like an ASU game or Tempe Festival for the Arts or like any of the other nonsense that they always have going on there. I do really like Fiesta Mall as a location. I like the Scottsdale location. They want to put it up by Salt River Fields. There's a third one I don't remember right now, but when it comes to staying in Arizona, I think I really like those two, the Fiesta Mall and the one right off the 101 there as options, just because of the freeway access. You have the 60 and the 101 right by Fiesta Mall. So it's very easy to get to for just about anybody because you have options on how to get there. It's a wide enough, like the roads can hold enough traffic to get people in there. It's just a matter of, do they want to build all of the other shit that they wanted to build in Tempe? Like, do they want it to be what's the word? Like a multi-event type district. That's what I don't really know, but yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents on that. Like, if you were someone who worked in Tempe, like if you're at that Carvana that's right there on Rio, anytime there's a hockey game, like you're not getting home. That's like that's an hour added to your commute.
Well, it's kind of like that already when ASU plays. I remember nights going down there just to get out to the Vine on Rural and Apache, rest in peace. But anytime there was a game, they would have roads closed off. It was all congested. There's just a shit ton of people. So I get that. I mean, I get the residents' perspective, and it's probably a good thing only the Tempe residents were able to vote on it, because I think anyone else would be like all in favor for it. Because the biggest thing from my non-Tempe resident perspective is when they were playing in Glendale, there's no way in hell I wanted to drive out to Glendale on a Tuesday night to go see a Coyotes game. But if they're in Tempe, especially where I live now, but that aside, but if it's in Tempe, especially if you live in the surrounding area in the Valley, it's much more accessible, maybe 20, 30 minutes to get there versus an hour, or more to get out there. So I do agree with you on the part of the Fiesta Mall site. I think that's a good alternative. Mesa is still pretty centrally located. I worry a little bit about them going too far north or too far south again. I mean, Scottsdale and Salt River Fields is still pretty accessible. Like you said, it's right there off the freeway. But then again, you're kind of starting to Ian, for you, how far do you think it is from where you live in Ahwatukee to get out to Salt River Fields? Probably a good 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah. 40 minutes if it's a bad day for traffic. Probably 30 minutes sounds about right.
But I think that's good. I think there's a lot of potential for them to, even if that doesn't work out, look at maybe piggybacking off one of the casinos and going on the reservation somewhere. I know that can get kind of sticky with how those contracts work with negotiating with the tribes, but I'm sure they could draw it up to where it would work out. I just hope that it does. And I want to see the Coyotes stay here. It seems like they're committed to wanting to stay here. But if they can't make it work, I don't know if their hands might end up being tied and they do go look to one of these other cities that is ready to welcome them with open arms and throw up a new arena for them, or put them in an existing arena in another city. I heard a long time ago, Mike, I think it was Dan Bickley or one of those personalities on 98.7. He was kind of against it from the perspective of, does the Valley really need another arena or another venue? Because not only are the Coyotes going to be there, right? You're going to have concerts, shows, different things like that. So is that going to oversaturate the market with having all these venues? And is it going to ultimately hurt these other venues that are trying to fill their stadium with Taylor Swift concerts and things like that?
It can, and it probably would, right? Because you see the shiny new thing. So a lot of high profile acts are going to try and go there first because it's something brand new. But it also depends. I mean, Taylor Swift's not going to go to a 16,000 seat arena. She's always going to have to go to State Farm Stadium because she needs to get 75,000 plus people there, so it just depends on the acts. I think the coolest thing about the possibility of it wasn't for me just the stadium to finally have a solidified place for the Arizona Coyotes to play, but the entertainment district as well. The restaurants that could come in, the shopping centers, more places to live, especially with the younger kids. And if it goes to Mesa, that's still a good place for, ASU students that commute to Tempe back and forth. Isn't that hard as well? And yeah, at the end of the day, I think we get short-sighted on exactly what really could have happened, like Ian was saying, with the logistics in regards to traffic and control and whatnot. It would be a nightmare. I totally understand, but if they were to go to Fiesta Mall, I would say I'd be able to make it out to a couple of games, because that would be 10-minute drive for me at least. I mean, it takes me 15 minutes to get downtown from where I'm at in the Chandler Tempe area as well. So, but I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is this team needs to start putting together a winning product, or else it's going to be hard to keep them in Arizona. But like Chris said, I know that the Coyotes are committed to staying in Arizona, and Gary Bettman, his wet dream has always been Arizona ever since he took over as commissioner and bringing them here. So I think they're going to give it a couple more last-ditch efforts before they pull the plug on getting this team out of the Valley. So that works for me. I think at the end of the day, they're going to figure something out, but then they need to start figuring out putting some damn players on the ice so we can have a successful product. I mean, that's just it at the end of the day.
Mike, we're like mind melding tonight, because literally as you're talking, I'm starting to think of a point and then you just end up saying it. And that I 100% agree. They have to put a better product on the ice. And Ian, you probably don't know a lot about the Coyotes. I know you're not really a big hockey fan in general, but the Coyotes have only had like one winning season in the past 15 years. And they've only made the playoffs one time in that same amount of time. They're just garbage year in and year out. And with my limited knowledge of the team, because I honestly haven't been keeping up with them too closely, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if it's a lack of talent. Clearly it's a lack of talent, but I don't know if that's because they're not willing to spend, if they're not drafting correctly, if they're not making moves in free agency, or if it's a coaching issue. I know there's been guys to get excited about, like Clayton Keller. We did have Oliver Ekman-Larsson was a staple here for a long time, and he ended up getting shipped out. That's who I mentioned. Who's the other guy? Clayton Keller. I think he's still here. But who are you putting around him to put a product that's worthy of getting one of these arena deals? Because that's another thing. Like, yeah, you could build this nice entertainment district in an arena, but if you're putting a trash product on the ice, are you going to be putting asses in those seats, and are you going to be selling out? Is it going to end up paying for itself ultimately? I do like the idea of an entertainment district, because you'll have other things in there, of course, restaurants, bars, maybe bowling alleys and things like that. But I'll be curious to see. I think, like you say, Gary Bettman wants them to stay here. It seems like the Coyotes want to stay here. So there's a lot of parties vested in keeping the Coyotes here in the desert, and we've seen that it worked. I mean, I think right now, what is it? The Florida Panthers and the Las Vegas Golden Knights are the two teams in the Stanley Cup final. So hockey in the desert, hockey in a warm climate isn't the craziest thing, especially obviously they play indoors as all professional teams do. They have, I think, once a year, a really cool, I think it was, I don't know if they've done it recently, but the Flyers and the Penguins played at like PNC Park or something like that. They set up a rink in the middle of the baseball stadium and played an outdoor game. And those things are super cool. Like I remember college basketball probably 10 years ago now, or maybe more recently, I think they brought it back, did the Carrier Classic, where they set up a basketball court on a, like, what is it called? A airplane carrier or a giant ship.
Like a Navy carrier, yeah.
Navy carrier, there you go, in the middle of the ocean. So you can call it a gimmick if you want. I like things like that. I think what would be really cool, maybe, even for the NBA or basketball, I don't know, maybe it's because the seating arrangement, but if they did something like that for like an all-star game, I think that'd be super dope. I always like those alternative venues. I mean, what do you think about that idea, Ian? Like doing an NBA game like on an outdoor court somewhere, and like they can set up makeshift bleachers and do an outdoor all-star game.
That'd be cool. It'd probably be one of those things where they have to do it like March Madness, where they like build the court as like a temporary thing and then take it down later so that you don't have NBA players playing on concrete.
Absolutely would not be on concrete.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, this was probably a decade ago now. It was still when Steve Nash was with the Suns. I think it was towards the latter end of his time with the Suns. The Suns, I believe, played the Spurs at an outside court, and it was like on a tennis court. So they set up the hardwood out on the court, and they had it outside. I think the problem that they found was it got a bit windy. So if you've been out there and if you've ever just shot a ball while it's windy at all, the trajectory of that thing just goes. So that became an issue, but I'm with you. I'd love to see that, man. I could put NBA teams on an airship or aircraft carrier. Hell yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. Why not?
That's just like the most fun to me. Like the most fun one to me. It's like so random. I think it's really cool. I don't know if it's like probably something in conjunction with the Navy and whatnot. But Mike, you brought that up. I think I vaguely remember this. I'm
against the Nuggets? Okay.
Yeah, I guess against the Nuggets. But you see Lou Amundsen here. That's Shaq? You see Shaq there? Is Steve Nash? Let me see. NBA Suns versus Nuggets.
Who is that?
Is that Birdman Chris Anderson on the Nuggets?
Oh, yes, it is.
That's gotta be.
With his yellow headband?
With possibly Andre Miller that he's smacking in the face
with
his right hand.
It.
Any idea what the venue is? It looks like it. Oh, you said a tennis court. That's right. So yeah, it's probably not a notable venue. I
think it was in California, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it like a preseason thing you were saying?
I believe so, yeah.
That makes sense. It gets a little blurry here as I'm trying to zoom in because when I open it up, it's real small. But yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I do see I hear what you're saying about the wind aspect of it, though. That's a huge thing in basketball. There's nothing worse than you go down to the park to put up some shots and it's just a super windy day. And I mean, it's a good excuse, right? Like I missed that 3-pointer because of the wind. The dog was barking. The sun was in my eyes, and obviously that's why I'm saying like suggesting like an all-star game where the stakes are low. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do something like that for like a regular season game. That gets a bit tedious. But for a venue like in California, Texas, Arizona in February, it's not going to be that cold. The guys will be just fine playing an outdoor game at that time of year for the NBA. So I'm all about it. Maybe I'll write Adam Silver a letter, see if we can get them looking into that.
Forgot to mention, or I just remembered the third option for the Coyotes would be moving into Footprint Center and sharing it with the Suns.
I think one of the issues that came down towards the end of their time frame when they were with the Suns, when it was America West Arena, is there was too much moisture coming onto the floor. The actual basketball court from the ice underneath. So it started to become a safety risk. But I mean, if you could make it happen, why not? It's just the most logical sense. Just put it in the center of Phoenix. I mean, people are going to find a way to get there. I think the toughest scenario, in general as well, this might be my last point about it, just from a fan aspect, and it would be tough sharing that arena with them as well, is the season coincides exactly alongside the same time as the NBA. The NHL and NBA run exactly the same time. So could you imagine if the NHL ran in the summer, like how the WNBA does, and you start in June and you run through December or whatnot? You're not overlapping. You go up against baseball. I get it, but as an Arizonan, would you find yourself going to a few more games in a ice rink in the middle of summer? I think I would.
Absolutely.
So, the last thing that I want to be thinking about as well is going to an ice rink in November when it's already cold from our standards, comparative to the rest of the country. It's not. I get that. But if you're Arizona born and bred, in November, it gets chilly for us. So I don't want to be even colder,
Imagine how like Minnesota fans feel, for the Wild, where they're going to games in December, January, where it's negative 10 degrees or whatever. They're already freezing their asses off. And then they have to go into a cold arena on top of that. Why not? I don't know what the weather's like in Minnesota in the summer. I imagine 80s, 90s, and a little bit humid, but why not?
I'm sure the sentence is often said, like, finally I can get to the ice rink and warm up a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding. Honestly, that's probably the case. Yeah, because it's negative 10 outside, but it's only 30 degrees inside the arena. They're taking
like
off their
30 or
coat.
40
They're getting
degrees.
comfortable. Yeah. That's a great point.
Like,
But it's definitely yeah, literally. I don't know. I did go to some games when they were out in Glendale when I was much younger. Well, comparative to how old I am now. But yeah, I didn't hate the Glendale arena by any means. It was just way too far out there. Just too far. Glendale is not part of the Valley. I'm sorry, Glendale. I'm sorry. Don't shoot.
Glendale, you had your chance, man. You had your chance.
And it's
you
fine.
got the Cardinals.
I was gonna say, because people say, "Well, Chris, the Cardinals play out there," but they play on Sunday, maybe Monday or Thursday, and only 8 games a year, and you plan a whole day.
You make an
that.
event out of it. Exactly. Yes. I can't be trying to go down there at 7:00 at night trying to fight through the Valley traffic. No. It just doesn't work. But hopefully the Coyotes, they're going to figure it out at some point, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. But Chris, I think we got to transition one more time. I know this was something that Ian brought up as well. So Ian, I just got to pass it over to you with what's going on with the rumor mill with Jimmy Butler. Like, what's happening, man? Talk to the people about this.
Well, so the internet has been murmuring that Jimmy Butler, who does not know his real father, it's possible that it could be Michael Jordan. He is. We know Michael Jordan has had extramarital affairs. It's entirely possible that he may have kids out there that he does not know about. I don't remember where Jimmy Butler is from, but seeing a picture of the two of them together is really the most telling thing.
I love how they're both wearing white jerseys with red lettering too. That just makes it even better.
Well, I know that Jimmy Butler went to Marquette, right?
Yep.
But where did he grow up? Let's see here.
He was abandoned when he was like 13 by his mother, and he ended up getting adopted by another family. Where'd Jimmy Butler grow
He was born in Houston on September 14th, 1989. Yeah, his father abandoned the family when Butler was an infant. By the time he was 13 years old and living in Houston, his mother kicked him out of the house at 13 years old.
Yep.
Holy smokes, man.
It's the NBA Jon Snow theory. That's what they're calling it.
Jon Snow. That's a Game of Thrones reference, right? Or something like that.
Yep.
So I know I saw he did an interview with somebody, I think from ESPN, like Malika Andrews or something recently, and she asked him where the Eastern Conference Finals MVP trophy was, and he said, "Oh, it's with my dad. I don't need it." So did he give it to Michael Jordan? Is that what you're saying, Ian?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The reason I brought it up in our group chat was just seeing his playoff run. I mean, every good basketball player gets compared to Michael Jordan at some point or another because we don't have the smartest fan base. But I've always seen the pictures of Michael Jordan and Jimmy Butler's faces side by side, and they do have very similar features. And just the way he's been playing this playoffs, doing things like refusing to hold the Eastern Conference Final trophy because he's like, I'll hold the next one. Those things remind me of like kind of the way that Michael Jordan spoke and just his mentality towards the game. I think that's really, really why it was on my mind.
Chris, you got to Photoshop Jimmy Butler right there next to Marcus.
It's so funny because when I Googled Michael Jordan's son, a picture of Jimmy Butler popped up. So I'm not saying, but I don't know. I could see maybe a little resemblance potentially.
Hey, we all love a good conspiracy theory every once in a while. Well, just for now, we'll say that Jimmy Butler is Michael Jordan's son. Why not? He's channeling his inner father. But
yeah.
Hey, at the end of the day, man, I know the Heat team put it together as a whole unit, but he has just had some games where he has completely put them on his back and taken them to the promised land. So I know it's early in the series. I know we have our predictions, but I'd love if the Heat can make it a series because at the end of the day, that's what we want, right?
Wait, that's
Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, sorry. I don't think he's old enough to be Jimmy Butler's dad.
No, I feel like Michael B. Jordan's just a little bit older. He's got to be like 36, right?
I think a lot too about watching Jimmy Butler this playoff run. Do you remember a story from a year or two ago that was about Jimmy Butler when he was on Minnesota and he beat the starters with the D-League team?
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to think that actually happened. Like when I heard it, I was like, that's just Jimmy Butler being a fucking crazy person because I kind of think he is. But nah, man, like the way he's been doing it this playoffs, I think he might have actually done that.
Well, so I think a few weeks ago, one of his teammates, Jeff Teague, went on a podcast and basically talked about that infamous story and how, he was riffing with the front office because he was trying to get his money, which is understandable. He was a big part of that Minnesota team as well. Karl Anthony Towns was young, but he came in. He didn't really do much, and then it was time to scrimmage, and he's like, "No, I'm playing with these bums."
Yeah,
and they just torched the starting lineup guys. He's stripping it from Karl Anthony Towns, going down, making buckets, making great assists, and then he basically walked off the court, basically saying, "Fuck you, pay me."
Yeah,
and I think he went straight into an interview with ESPN right after that, and the lady who was interviewing him then was like, we heard some rumblings about, a scrimmage and it got a little bit chippy. And he basically said, yeah, what you heard it probably is true. So he's always struck me as that kind of a guy. And he's a dog, man, at the end of the day. And that's what we've been seeing in these playoffs.
Yeah, he is the dog. He does not have the dog in him. He is the dog.
He's the literal dog.
Yeah, I don't mind Jimmy Butler. I respect his game. There's a few times when I'm like, I don't know about Jimmy Butler, but I always come back around where he didn't play his best game tonight, but still scored in double digits, and I expect he'll probably bounce back next game with 20 plus. Win or lose, he always seems to try and show up and put his best foot forward. Well, before we wrap up here, guys, all this talk about entertainment districts and things like that got me thinking. So the other week, Mike and I went down to a new Dave & Buster's that opened up out here in the East Valley in Queen Creek. And it was a little bit smaller than your typical Dave & Buster's. They had a real big dining area, but the actual gaming area was pretty small. I think just the constrictions of the plaza and the construction. But that aside, Ian, I'll ask you first, and then Mike, I want to know for you, what is your guys' favorite arcade game? Or when you're at the arcade, what are you looking to play if it's there and available? Putting you on the spot with this question.
That's a good question. There's multiple games like it, so I don't want to call out just one name, but there is a series of racing games that are Japanese, and they give you a little card so you can save your car. And if you keep playing and putting the card in, you can work on the engine of your car and make it faster and faster. If it's rare that I see those games, but when I do, it's a wrap. Like, that's all I'm playing at the arcade for sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
For me, I'm probably going with, age-old classic, Papa Shot. You can't beat it. It's just always going to be there. I know it gets old quick, but as a basketball fan and somebody who plays ball a lot, that's just my go-to. The other things I always like is anything where it's like throwing to hit down objects. Like, I know that David Buster's had some kind of dodgeball game. Then you have other ones where it's throw the football, whatever, anything like that. I would love to get into like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, but I've just always been horrible at those things. So it's always not my favorite. Because I always take an L.
What about like NBA
Newest Street
Jam or
Fighter.
Blitz?
Oh, true.
Classic. I still am probably leaning towards Pop Shot at the end of the day.
Yeah, I could see that. I remember one time, it was like a couple years, maybe last year, you and I went to the Dave & Buster's in Tempe, and they have like the full size basketball hoop, and we kind of got a little crowd around because you and I were going kind of at it, draining buckets, not trying to toot our horn or anything. But Ian, I was away for a sec when you were talking there, but I heard you mentioned, was it Initial D, that racing game?
There's Initial D, and then there's a second one. I think I don't know what the hell it's called, like Maximum Tune or something like that, but it's the same idea. Initial D is downhill drifting, which is awesome, and it plays the most ridiculous, tacky Japanese music I've ever heard in my life. But the other one, Maximum Tune, is it's like racing on freeways. It's like street racing.
Oh, Maximum Tune. Okay.
But yeah, it's basically the same idea. Both of those games are what I look for first, and usually whatever arcade I'm at doesn't have them.
Yeah.
But
do you still have any of the little cards, like update your car or like keep your car?
no, they usually I have them in my wallet, and then I accidentally put my wallet in the laundry, and that's the end of that with those cards.
Man,
those are gone for sure now, unfortunately.
I could totally relate. I think Ian, since you've been out here, I keep forgetting you've been out here for like almost 10 years now, or has it been 10 years? Was it 20?
It's 8 years.
8 years?
If I remember right. 2015 was my first year here.
Gotcha. So I think GameWorks was still a thing when you got out here, right? We still had that GameWorks at the Mills Mall?
I think so. There's
That had to
definitely
be at the
another
tail
arcade
end
there
of it,
now.
though.
Yeah.
It went shut down and became full tilt, I think is what it's called last I saw.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think Ian, you and I went there not long ago. Definitely, obviously the same layout as GameWorks, pretty much same building, but a lot bit of a different vibe in that place. Still pretty cool. I think last time I was up there upstairs, they had a ton of pinball machines, like a whole section dedicated to that, which I like a good pinball machine. I can't even lie. But just to share with you my favorite, and Ian, it's in some ways similar to yours, where like you got a little card where you could come back and use the same one over and over again. And if Matt is listening back or watching, him and I, and even my sister, it was like a family affair. We loved the Derby Owners Club World Edition, where it doesn't exist anymore. You can't find it anywhere. But basically, you would breed, care for, and race a horse. And it was like a 3-step thing. So you would slide your card once. If you were just starting out and you didn't have a horse you were bringing back with you, you would pick two parents. They would breed your horse that you ended up using. And then you would do a training. So there were a couple different trainings you could choose from. And depending on how good you did in the training, it would level up their stats. Then you would give them something to eat. And again, depending on what food item was available, it was like what are they called? what's the random number generators called? It's like I guess just a random number generator, not trying to overcomplicate it. But then you do that, and then you would go to the race, and there was like 2 buttons. It was whip and hold. And there was like a moving meter to when to whip and how much energy your horse had. But man, I just loved that game so much. And GameWorks was the last place I knew in the Valley that had it. I think Dave and Buster's actually did have it for a while. Mike, I think you would remember we would go there.
I remember you and Matt sitting there for at least an hour playing that freaking game, dude.
We'll just beeline it over there. Yeah, dude, I would spend hours. And like, man, I didn't selfishly bring up this topic just to reminisce about the Derby Owners Club, but it all started with me and my family would go to GameWorks. My mom and dad would post up in the restaurant area for whatever 2-3 hours we were there. I think my mom would bring a book and just be drinking bottomless Diet Cokes or whatever, and we would be posted up on that Derby Owners Club game. Me, my brother, and my sister, and that was just our shit. But Ian, I was just thinking that also with that initial D, what reminded me of if we'd gone to GameWorks or not, because they had the one where it was like the it's not virtual reality, but it had like the motion, like the swaying to it.
Yeah.
So like when you're in the car and you were like turn, it like feels like it would like tilt to like make you feel like you're actually in the car. But I love a good arcade game. I guess last follow-up question, where's your favorite place to go and play arcade games? Is it Dave and Buster's, or is there another place you like to hit up for that fix?
I think I like the smaller barcades more. There's one in Mesa that's really good called The Grid. They actually have a second one now. I think they reopened Endgame in Mesa too.
Did they really? Like the Mill Avenue Endgame?
I mean, either it's a crazy coincidence or it's the same one. But like the sign out front is exactly the same, and it's the same idea. It's like food, drinks, games. I don't know if it's the exact same people behind it, but it really, really, really looks similar. I like those better just because I like, if I can do anything with a local business over national, I like to go that way. But I definitely like Dave & Buster's. Main Event can go fuck itself.
Adios. That's for kids. Like, I know Dave & Buster's is for kids, but like Main Event is 100% just for kids, I feel like.
Especially
in the arcade area.
I'll go bowl at Main Event.
Yeah,
that's about it though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like Level 1 in downtown Gilbert. That place is pretty cool. They have a lot of pinball machines, and it's primarily just kind of old school, like Galaga. They got NBA Jam. They got your NFL Blitz. They got all that kind of stuff there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles classic. I love that. But then you just can't go wrong with the big Tempe Dave & Buster's. I mean, that place is gigantic, and you could get lost in there just trying every game for hour and a half, 2 hours. So yeah, those are the two that I like the most here in the Valley.
I agree. Yeah, I think I like what Dave & Buster's has going for him. I remember while we're talking about this, remembered one time Ian and I went down there and spent like $30-$40 to beat Time Crisis from start to finish. That game's kind of cool because you have the pedal where it's like you have to duck down, duck up, and it's just like a shoot 'em up game. But good times, man. Good times. Well, fellas, I think we're getting down to the end of our time in this round table. Might have to just rename the show to the Mike, Chris, and Ian show if we don't get some other guests coming on here anytime soon. But Ian, it's always a pleasure having you join us. I love your outside perspective you bring, and we'll slowly convert you to become more of a Valley sports fan. I think starting with the Diamondbacks, I think that baseball's the way into your heart. So.
Yeah, it's already there. I just need to get it on the TV. Once I'm able to actually watch the fucking games, like I'm pretty much there.
We'll be there in person on Saturday as well. So slowly but surely.
Yep, I always say it, but hopefully we can get some content out. It's been a while since we posted on the TikTok. I think that's a little bit my fault too, slacking. I want to get some video clips and stuff up there, so it's all accessible for you guys, some short form content. But in any case, Ian, before we take off and kick you out, is there anything you wanted to say, get off your chest, or anything? Floor is yours.
No, I don't got too much. I said it all. Go Dbacks, go Yankees, and
Right on.
then I'll wait for the next seasons to start for the other sports I watch.
There you go, Michael Benjamin. What about you?
No, man. Just happy to kick it with you gentlemen once again, talk some sports, talk some video games. I love that. I was telling Ian earlier, got my new PC coming through, so we'll have some hopefully new edits on some of our recaps, start building this brand bigger than it already is. We appreciate everybody who's along for the ride so far, and appreciate you, Chris. We out.
Happy to be here. Thank you, everyone. Again, I'll keep this short. For Michael Benjamin, for Ian Likes Baseball, I'm Chris Patrick, and we will, as always, see you next time. Peace.